Daddy, her baby is freezing. How a CEO single dad and his little girl saved a homeless mother. The little girl's voice cut through the winter air like a blade. Daddy, her baby is freezing. Marcus turned and saw his 6-year-old daughter standing frozen on the sidewalk, tears streaming down her face, pointing at something in the darkness beneath the bridge. He'd never heard that kind of fear in her voice before. Before we continue with this story, I want to invite you to subscribe to Sage Stories if you haven't already. We share powerful, real stories about resilience, kindness, and the voices that need to be heard. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments what this story means to you. Your voice matters here. Marcus Sullivan had built his entire life around two things: his company and his daughter. After his wife passed away from cancer 3 years earlier, those became the only things that made sense anymore. Everything else felt like noise. He was the CEO of a mid-sized tech firm in Chicago, the kind of position that came with expectations and a carefully maintained image. People saw the suits, the confidence, the corner office with the view of Lake Michigan. They didn't see the man who still kept his wife's coffee mug on the kitchen counter, who sometimes forgot to eat lunch because he was lost in memories, who lay awake at night wondering if he was doing right by their daughter. Emma was 6 years old, with her mother's eyes and a heart that seemed too big for her small body. Since losing her mom, she'd become quieter, more observant. She noticed things other kids didn't. The way Marcus would pause sometimes, when a certain song played on the radio, the empty chair at the dinner table that no one mentioned, the photographs he kept in his wallet but rarely looked at. She carried her grief differently than he did, in questions she didn't ask and silences that spoke volumes. It was a Thursday evening in late January when everything changed. Marcus had picked Emma up from her after-school program, running late as usual, his mind already on the presentation he had to review that night. The Chicago winter had settled in hard, the kind of cold that finds its way through even the best coat, the kind that makes your bones ache. The temperature had dropped below 15 degrees, and the wind off the lake made it feel even colder. They were walking to the car, parked 2 blocks away because the lot near Emma's school had been full. Marcus was holding her hand, talking about dinner plans when she suddenly stopped, just froze right there on the sidewalk. He felt the tug on his arm and turned, already forming the words to hurry her along. That's when he heard it, that cry that would replay in his mind for months to come. Daddy, her baby is freezing. Emma was pointing toward the underpass, where the streetlights didn't quite reach. Marcus squinted into the darkness and saw what his daughter had seen. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, huddled against the concrete wall. She was wrapped in layers of thin clothing, and in her arms, bundled in what looked like a torn blanket, was an infant. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd walked past homeless people before. Everyone in Chicago had. He'd felt bad about it, sometimes gave money, sometimes didn't, but he'd never stopped. There was always somewhere to be, always a reason to keep moving. And there was Emma to think about. His responsibility to keep her safe, to shield her from the harder edges of the world. But Emma wasn't moving. She was crying now, those big tears that broke his heart every time. Daddy, we have to help them. The baby doesn't have a real blanket. It's too cold. Marcus looked at his daughter, then back at the woman and child in the shadows. His corporate mind was already calculating risks, thinking about safety, wondering if this was appropriate, if he should just call someone, some organization designed to handle these situations. But Emma's hand was squeezing his tighter, and her mother's voice echoed in his memory. A conversation they'd had years ago before the cancer, before the world had narrowed to hospital rooms and test results. She'd said that the measure of a person wasn't what they did when it was convenient, but what they did when it cost them something. He took a breath. Okay, sweetheart. Stay close to me. They approached slowly. The woman looked up as they got closer, and Marcus saw the fear in her eyes. Not just the fear of the cold or hunger, but the fear of being seen, of being judged, of being moved along. She pulled the baby closer to her chest protectively. I'm sorry to bother you, Marcus said, and he was surprised to find he meant it. My daughter noticed you were out here with your baby, and she's worried. It's really cold tonight. The woman didn't say anything at first. She just stared at them, trying to figure out the angle, what they wanted. People didn't usually approach with kindness. Emma stepped a little closer, and her small voice was gentle. Is your baby okay? Something in that question, in the genuine concern from a child, seemed to crack something in the woman's defenses. Her eyes filled with tears. "She's cold," she whispered. "I can't keep her warm enough." Marcus felt something shift inside him. This wasn't a problem to be solved with a phone call or a donation. This was a mother and a baby freezing on a Chicago street while he stood there in his $1,000 coat. "What's your name?" he asked. "Vanessa," she said quietly. "And this is Lily. She's 4 months old." Emma was already taking off her scarf, the pink one her grandmother had given her for Christmas. "Here," she said, holding it out. "For the baby." Vanessa's hand trembled as she took it, wrapping it carefully around her daughter. "Thank you," she whispered, and those 2 words carried the weight of 100 unspoken ones. Marcus knew what he had to do, even as every practical part of his brain was screaming at him to reconsider. "Listen, I have a car nearby. It's warm. Why don't you and Lily come sit in it for a while, warm up a bit? Then we can figure out what to do next." Vanessa looked at him like he was speaking another language. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Marcus said. "But my daughter's right. It's too cold out here for a baby, please." They walked to the car together, this unlikely group. Marcus turned the heat up full blast and gave Vanessa the emergency blanket he kept in the trunk. Emma sat in the back with her, talking quietly to baby Lily, making soft cooing sounds that made the infant's eyes track toward her. As the car warmed up, Vanessa's story emerged slowly, painfully. She'd been a nurse, had an apartment, had a life. Then she got sick, missed too much work, lost her job. Then the apartment. She'd been living in a shelter, but they'd had to leave because of bed bugs and overcrowding, and she'd been trying to save enough for a security deposit on a new place. But with a baby, no one wanted to hire her. No one wanted to rent to her. She'd been invisible for so long that Marcus's simple act of seeing her, of stopping, felt almost shocking. Marcus sat there listening, and he thought about his own privilege, his own blind spots. He thought about Emma, safe and warm every night, never having to worry about where her next meal would come from or whether they'd have a roof over their heads. He thought about Vanessa fighting every single day just to keep her baby alive. "I have a guest house," he heard himself say. "Behind my house. It's small, just 1 room with a bathroom, but it's winterized. It's empty. You and Lily could stay there tonight. Get warm, get some rest." Vanessa stared at him. "I can't accept that. I don't even know you." "I'm Marcus," he said. "And you're right to be cautious. But I'm also a father who understands that sometimes you have to accept help, even from strangers, especially for your child." Emma's voice came from the back seat. "Please come stay with us. Lily needs to be warm." Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the simple fact that someone was offering dignity instead of pity. Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. That night changed everything. Marcus made up the guest house with fresh sheets and brought out space heaters. Emma insisted on giving Lily some of her old baby blankets, the ones Marcus had kept stored away. Vanessa stood in the small space, holding her daughter, looking around like she couldn't quite believe it was real. "Just for tonight," Marcus said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." But tomorrow came, and then the day after, and slowly, carefully, a new kind of family began to form. Not in the traditional sense, but in the way that matters most. In shared meals and quiet conversations. In Emma teaching Lily to laugh, even at 4 months old. In Vanessa slowly trusting that this wasn't a trick, that kindness could exist, without strings attached. Marcus used his connections to help Vanessa find job opportunities. But he was careful not to overwhelm her, not to take away her agency. This wasn't about him being a savior. This was about providing a foundation so she could save herself. Vanessa proved to be resourceful and determined. Within a month, she'd found work at a local clinic. Part-time to start, enough to begin saving again. But something else was happening too. Marcus was changing. The walls he'd built around his grief were beginning to crack. Watching Vanessa fight for her daughter with such fierce love reminded him of his own wife's strength during her illness. And seeing Emma come alive again, finding purpose in helping care for Lily, showed him that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant making space for new connections, new meanings. Emma and Vanessa developed a special bond. Sometimes Marcus would come home from work and find them in the main house, Vanessa helping Emma with homework while Lily played on a blanket nearby. Other times Emma would be in the guest house, reading stories to Lily, in that serious way kids have when they're mimicking adults they admire. One evening, about 6 weeks after that cold night under the bridge, Marcus found Vanessa sitting on the guest house steps, Lily asleep in her arms. He sat down beside her, and they watched the sun set in comfortable silence. "Why did you stop?" Vanessa asked finally. "That night. Why did you really stop?" Marcus thought about it. "Honestly, I didn't want to. I was tired, late, had work to do. I was going to keep walking." "But you didn't." "No, because Emma saw you. Really saw you, not as a problem or a situation, but as a person. As a mother with a baby who needed help. And she refused to look away. She's 6 years old and she has more courage than I do." Vanessa was quiet for a moment. "You know what the hardest part was? Not the cold or the hunger. It was the invisibility. People would look right through me like I wasn't there. Like Lily wasn't there. You were the first person in months who actually saw me as human." Marcus felt the weight of that. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I've walked past so many people without really seeing them." "You stopped when it mattered," Vanessa said. "That's more than most people do." Spring came slowly to Chicago. The ice melted, the trees budded, and life started to feel possible again. Vanessa had moved into her own small apartment by then, found through a program Marcus had connected her with. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She had a full-time position at the clinic now, and a neighbor who helped watch Lily during her shifts. But they still had dinner together twice a week, Marcus and Emma, Vanessa and Lily. They'd become a kind of extended family, bound not by blood but by that moment of choice on a cold January night. Emma was different now, more confident, more aware of the world beyond her own experience. She'd started a collection drive at her school for baby supplies for homeless mothers. She talked about it constantly. How they could help more people, how they could make sure no more babies were freezing on the streets. Marcus was different too. He'd started volunteering at a homeless shelter, bringing Emma with him when appropriate. He'd begun to question the systems that allowed people to fall through the cracks, to understand that homelessness wasn't a personal failing but often a cascade of circumstances that could happen to anyone. He'd become an advocate, using his position and resources to push for change. But more than any of that, he'd learned to see again, really see, the people on the corners, the families in shelters, the individuals behind the statistics, each one with a story, with dignity, with dreams. 1 year after that night, on another cold January evening, they all gathered in Marcus's living room. Emma was helping Lily, now 16 months old, stack blocks. Vanessa and Marcus were making dinner, moving around each other in the easy rhythm of people who'd shared enough meals to know the dance. Emma looked up from her play and said, "Daddy, remember when we found Vanessa and Lily?" Marcus knelt down beside her. "I remember, sweetheart. I'm glad we stopped." "Me too, baby, me too." Vanessa looked at them, at this man and his daughter who had changed everything. "You saved us," she said quietly. But Emma shook her head with the certainty that only children possess. "You saved us too," she said, looking at Vanessa, with those eyes so much like her. Mothers. "You," helped Daddy smile again, and it was true. In helping Vanessa and Lily, Marcus and Emma had found their own healing. They'd learned that compassion wasn't a weakness but a strength. That seeing someone, truly seeing them, was sometimes the most powerful thing you could do. That the walls we build to protect ourselves can also become the prisons that keep us from truly living. The story of that January night spread quietly through their community. Not because Marcus told it, he didn't like the spotlight, but because Emma did. In her innocent, matter-of-fact way, she shared what happened whenever anyone would listen. And people did listen. Some started volunteering. Others made donations. A few even opened their own guest houses to families in need. It wasn't a revolution, but it was something. Small acts of kindness rippling outward, creating waves of change. There are moments in life that define us, not the big planned ones, but the unexpected choices we make when we'd rather look away. That night under the bridge, Marcus had a choice. Emma had given him the courage to make the right one. And in doing so, they'd all found something precious: connection, healing, and the understanding that we're all just people trying to find our way home. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give isn't money or resources, though those matter. It's the simple act of stopping, of seeing, of recognizing the humanity in someone the world has taught us to overlook. Vanessa wasn't defined by her homelessness, any more than Marcus was defined by his wealth. They were both just parents trying to do right by their children, trying to navigate a world that could be harsh and beautiful in equal measure. As I share this story with you today, I want you to think about the people you pass every day. The ones who've become invisible through familiarity or discomfort. Each one carries a story as complex and real as your own. Each one deserves to be seen. Emma taught her father that compassion isn't complicated. It doesn't require grand gestures or perfect solutions. Sometimes it just requires stopping when everyone else keeps walking. It requires listening when it's easier to assume. It requires offering warmth when the world has grown cold. Marcus would tell you now that the real gift wasn't the guest house or the job connections. It was the moment Vanessa trusted him enough to accept help. It was watching Emma's compassion reshape his own capacity for love. It was learning that healing often comes not from isolation but from connection. Not from protection but from opening yourself to another person's pain and choosing to carry some of it with them. Vanessa would tell you that being seen, truly seen, gave her back her humanity. That Emma's small voice saying her baby is freezing broke through months of being treated as invisible. That Marcus's willingness to take a chance on her restored her faith, not just in others but in herself. Today Vanessa is working toward her nursing certification again. Lily is thriving, a happy toddler who knows nothing of that cold night but everything of the love that followed. Emma continues to champion for others, her young heart fierce with the understanding that kindness is not optional but essential. And Marcus has learned that being a good father means teaching his daughter to see the world not as it is, but as it could be if we all chose compassion over comfort. I encourage you to share your own stories in the comments below. Tell us about a time when someone stopped for you, or when you stopped for someone else. Let us know how a single moment of kindness changed your path. Your voice, your experience, your compassion, they all matter. They all ripple out into the world in ways we can't always measure but can always feel. The truth is we're all one moment away from needing help, and we're all one choice away from being someone else's hope. That January night taught Marcus and Emma what Vanessa already knew, that in our most vulnerable moments, we discover our greatest strength, not in standing alone, but in allowing ourselves to be seen, to be helped, to be part of something bigger than our individual struggles. So the next time you hear that small voice inside you, the one that says stop, that says look, that says help, I hope you'll listen. Because on the other side of that choice might be your own healing, your own purpose, your own reminder of why we're here, to see each other, to help each other, to remind each other that no matter how cold the world gets, there's always enough warmth when we're willing to share it.